Hi everybody, I'm Tim from troutandfeather.com, and in this fly tying tutorial I'm going to be sharing an absolutely simple and effective fly for carp known as the Krazy Carper. Stay tuned. Let's start tying this Krazy Carper pattern. This is without a doubt a no frills fly. This will easily qualify as one of my 2-minute tying series of patterns. I kind of look at this as a poor man's zonker, and I think you will too after you see the procedures for this fly that, by the way, works really, really well. For starters, in my Stonfo Cayman vise, I have a hook from Allen Fly Fishing. This is their D202. That's one of their Carp series of hooks. They're a really great series of hooks, extremely sharp. Take my word for it. As you'll probably notice in the video, if my finger comes in contact with that point, I'll tie this pattern anywhere between sizes 6 the whole way to a size 1. This is a size 4 that I have in my vise right now. I'm going to be using some 6/0 uni thread. The color is olive dun, and that can change based on the color combinations that you're tying, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the video. I'm just going to establish a little thread base, go back a little bit less than halfway and wrap forward just a little bit. I really like to tie in my dumbbell eye, we'll say a little bit of a distance from the eye of the hook because I want to leave room to finish the head of the fly. Depending on what material I'm using, in this case it's going to be chenille, I still like to get a wrap or two in front of the eye. I think it just gives a little bit of a finished look on that final product. Speaking of the eye, I'm going to be using some Dumbbell Eyes, and in this case, I'm going to be using these chrome ones. I really just love the look of these. They're easy to tie in. That silver look just has a great finish to them. These nickel eyes just really just seem to light up in the water. If I'm going to be using a darker fly, I'll use black. I'll still use a black Dumbbell Eye. Or I might even use a black bead chain, but overall, these are really my go-to eyes. And if I have to, sometimes I'll even use a Sharpie and put a little pupil in them. All right, once you have this really locked on there fairly well, I'm just going to wrap back, stop about halfway between the eyes and the back of the hook, and it's at this point we can tie in some tailing fibers. In this case, I'm going to be using some green crystal flash. Again, don't overthink this part, just grab a nice little cluster of them. Going to trim them, tie them in at that point, bring them forward so I don't have to worry about the tips. Tie back, and I want them really just going straight off the back of the hook. I want their length to be a little bit less than the body length. So once I get that distance, I'm just going to trim them. If you feel like you're going to be fishing water that really is clear, then I would use less crystal flash. If it's going to be a little bit more off color, I would add a little bit more crystal flash. So basically, add those according to the water types that you're going to be fishing. Now for one of the easiest parts, we're going to add in the body material. And what's great about this fly is that you could really use anything you want. If you do any Google searches for it, you'll see that there's guys using this pattern without any body whatsoever. And that's really not that surprising when you think about the different types of insects and we'll say minnow imitations and all the worms and everything else that's in the water. They have so many different body types, and this without a doubt could fit into that one. Now in my case, I really tend to just choose either some type of a crystal flash, and if I am using crystal flash, I tend to use black or some type of a chenille. In this case, I'm going to be using a product from Hairline called Speckled Chenille. The color is lime olive. Has a nice amount of flash to it, very easy to tie in. I've already stripped off the end, exposing the inner threads. Just going to lock that in place. Bring my thread a wrap or two in front of my eyes, and then just bring this chenille up. I obviously like to talk, and you can see how even without talking, this fly can go really, really fast. So I was able to squeeze in a couple turns of the chenille in front of the eyes. It's exactly what I want. I don't want to crowd my eyes too much. Now we have to keep in mind that this fly is going to be riding with this the dumbbells are going to be down. So the hook point is actually going to be riding hook point up. So we have to keep that in mind whenever we add in our last body material. And this, in this case, is going to be a wing. It's going to just be a Zonker strip, a rabbit strip. I'm going to be using the color green. And this is kind of a, I don't want to say a chartreusey green, because I know that's probably not a real word, but it definitely is more of an olive green with some chartreuse mixed in. I'm going to be adding this material, and I'm actually going to have to take the fly out to add this. So what I want to do first is just put in a quick whip finish or a half hitch, just something to lock everything in place so I know that while I'm messing around, everything's not going to come out. I've already cut this, and it's a little bit longer than my length, but I want to make it so when I look at this material, this hair is naturally flowing in one direction, and I want that direction to be towards the back of the fly. So I'm actually going to be placing this onto the hook. In this case, I'm going to be taking this skin side, I'm going to place it onto the hook about, say, 1/8 of an inch down, wrap it around, and then I'm going to lock it in place at the front. So I'll try my best to keep this all on camera. If you're using these hooks, be careful, because this is the point where you can really poke yourself. They're a very sharp hook. All right, so I've now put that in place. I'm going to spin it around. There's the hook. I'm actually going to place this upside down in the vise to finish this. Here's the front of that Zonker strip. I'm just going to try to separate the fibers. If you're having trouble doing this, then I recommend just wetting it a little bit with some saliva. You'll be able to find that nice separation point. When you find it, get your thread in a little bit, lock it in place with 5 fairly aggressive thread wraps. Then with that excess piece, that tag end, I really want to do my best to pull it away from the hook eye and trim as I'm pulling it away, because I do not like to crowd those hook eyes. I definitely have achieved that. So at this point, I can just finish off the head of my fly. Really nice olive thread showing through there. I'm going to put in one series of whip finishes. I grabbed some Sally Hansen, some hard as nails. Just add a little bit of this to my thread, just to help secure everything in place. Extend this a bit. Whip finish one more time. Whoa. You can see all this rabbit's really trying to catch on to things. All right, once I have that locked into place, voila. We have our finished Krazy Carper, or as I like to call that poor man's Zonker. Gosh, when you look at this, I mean, this just screams fish catcher. There's no doubt. But more importantly, this is a fast fly to tie. I did quite a bit of talking in this pattern, and this is one that you can really crank out in a short amount of time. And that's one of the keys to this pattern, because there's a chance that you could be losing some of these. And this is one you don't have to feel so guilty about losing, because you can easily find more of these and tie more of these in a short amount of time. Well, with that said, let me change the camera angle a little bit, and I'll tell you a little bit more about this Krazy Carper pattern. Now that I've finished tying this Krazy Carper, let's talk in depth a little bit more about the pattern. Well, this fly was developed by Jamie Kaminski, and he's one of those guys that is absolutely addicted to fly fishing for carp. Though, don't just think that this Krazy Carper fly, because it's got carp in its title, it has to be used for that species. Absolutely not. You can use it for trout, bass, stripers. Go crazy with it. This is a fly that catches fish. It has that really great quality that it's absolutely simple to tie, and it seems like those simple ones can be absolutely effective too. When I first saw it, I said, geez, this is like a poor man's Zonker, because it runs in that Zonker style of patterns. It's one of those that when you look at, you say, gosh, why didn't I come up with something like that? Because it is so simple to tie, yet it works so well. Let's talk a little bit more in depth about some of the characteristics of this fly, specifically the body and color combinations. As I mentioned during the tying of the Krazy Carper, you can basically use whatever material you'd like to for the body. I used the chenille with just a little bit of flash in it this time, though I absolutely love to use some type of a crystal chenille. I love to go with a dub body as well, and just tie it in an absolutely array of color combinations. I've also heard of many guys that have used it with no body whatsoever and have had success with it on carp too. I've never tried that personally, but if you've had any experience with that, please by all means share that in the comments section below, because I would love to have some proof on that. Well, knowing that you can basically tie the body with whatever material you'd like, now let's start talking about some color combinations. In this case, I tied this one in olive because it just seems like no matter what species of fish I'm fly fishing for, they're going to eat olive. However, if you think about carp, you may want to basically pair this pattern with those combinations that have worked well for you when you're fly fishing for carp over the years. I'm talking about those blacks, go with red, go with browns, those tans, basically those patterns that you know have been tried and true for you. You also want to consider going with those contrasting colors. For instance, I love black and fuchsia. I think they're just a great color combination. I also love anything with chartreuse in it. So I really love to pair some chartreuse and black together as well. I think that those contrasting colors really just trigger something in fish. And in this case, I'm not just talking about carp. So without a doubt, keep that in mind. And if you think you really have stumbled across a great color combination, again, please share it in the comments section below so we can all benefit from it, because it seems like those color combinations are endless. Don't be afraid to try different ones out. Speaking of that, this is one of those flies that I really have to stress. Don't be afraid of kind of making that extra 1 foot reach or putting it really close to the bank. Because this is so easy to tie, don't be afraid to lose some of these patterns. If you're just getting started in fly fishing for carp, this is one of those great patterns to really just fill your boxes with, and one of those that you don't have to be afraid about losing, because we can really crank these out in a short amount of time. So anytime you're out in a situation you're saying, geez, I'm not sure if I should go for that cast or not, if you're fishing this Krazy Carper, go for it, because the worst that happens is you lose a fly and you spook a fish, and you'll have many more flies and hopefully many more opportunities for those fish in the future. The one final thing that I'd like to mention is the hook that this is tied on. It's a D202 from Allen Fly Fishing, and though they market that hook as a carp hook, I have been using it for so many other streamer patterns over the last year. So if that's a hook that you're kind of interested in, go and check it out, because if you notice during the video, it is super sharp. I really have to watch whenever I'm poking that rabbit strip through, because I don't want to have it come through and poke my finger, because I know it's going to draw blood. They are really sharp hooks. They have a barb on them, but that's not a problem for me. I debarb any hook that has that on it. So check those out. They're a hook that have really just impressed me recently. Well, with all of that said, as always, thanks for viewing this fly tying tutorial for the Krazy Carper. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the comments section below, or you can email me at tcammisa@gmail.com. If you'd like to watch more of my fly tying tutorials, you can do so at my website, which is troutandfeather.com. I also have a Facebook page, and you can like that for some regular fly tying and fly fishing updates. Well, as always, everybody, thank you so much for the view, for any of the feedback, and thank you again for watching this fly tying tutorial for Jamie Kaminski's Krazy Carper.